Your book also talks about, sorry, that's my dog barking. Your book also talks about email flaming and electronic aggression. So some things to consider to keep that from happening because it can result in some really bad consequences. I have no idea why my dog is barking. Jamie. Jamie. Okay. I hope it's okay. But there are things to consider, such as would you say the same thing to someone in person? This also goes for social media, which we have this face, well, this no face, right? It's anonymity, which makes us feel invincible, like we could say anything and not have consequences. But in your emails, especially in the workplace and just in general, this is good to follow in general. Consider if you would say the same thing to someone in person. And if you wouldn't, then don't say it in an email um, or on social media. Think to yourself, would this message be seen as unprofessional by anyone? And if it is, we don't say it, right? And additionally, is your read of the electronic aggression correct? So give people the benefit of the doubt and request a face-to-face conversation if you feel like you received like a flaming email or like an angry email. Or if somebody talks to you in all caps, maybe they don't know that they have all caps on and they didn't proofread their email and they're actually not angry. In this case, request a face-to-face. And avoid the temptation to use the reply all. I love that your book says avoid the temptation because sometimes I've never like had the temptation to reply all, but I have accidentally hit reply all. So either way, check that you're replying to the one person and not the entire group of people. Avoid using obscene or threatening language. Curse words are out. Definitely don't threaten someone via email or in general. Control your emotions as much as you can. Revisit the issue when you've had time to calm down. If you get an email that makes you unhappy in any way, it's best to step away from the email for a considerable amount of time, take a walk, do whatever you do to de-stress, and then come back to it to write a response if you choose to, that is coming from a place of more still emotional feelings. So, some challenges to computer mediated communication in the workplace. And I love Ron Swanson. Anytime I see a meme with Ron Swanson, I'm going to use it probably. So you can see in this meme, when the staff meeting could have been an email, but half your colleagues never read their emails. We're getting it like we're hitting two birds with one stone with this meme. So one is, when should we use computer mediated communication versus face-to-face communication? And the answer is when we use when we use computer mediated communication, the information should be succinct and not like information overload. This can get tricky sometimes, especially when your primary form of communication is mediated, such as this class. I wrote the assignment for this week and I was like, oh gosh, this is a whole lot. I hope they read it and don't get lost in like all of these instructions, but they're all necessary. I wish I could talk to my students about this assignment in person so we could talk about it and ask any questions. So you want to, if there's a chance of information overload, then it needs to be a face-to-face interaction. If you can send out a memo, though, it's just like, hey, this thing happened. This is just letting you know. There's no decision-making process. If there's a decision-making process, it needs to be face-to-face. So it's just figuring out what the goal of the communication is, and then you can decide if it can be an email or if you need to schedule a face-to-face meeting. So I want to talk again about social cues and richness of communication and level of self-involvement. So our social cues via email can come across as ways that we don't intend it. So I love, there's a lot of different memes out and about right now about like, okay, I can't use 3 exclamation points because then I seem too desperate, but I can't use a period because then I seem too serious. And all of that's so true, right? If we think about also if different messaging apps, like I think WhatsApp does it, iMessage does it, Facebook Messenger does it, a lot of apps do it. Google Chat does it, where you have the dots that just like pulsate while somebody's talking. That's a social cue. That's a nonverbal social cue. Um, so just be aware of those social cues and also be aware of cultural context. So this can be in a variety of contexts, but you want to be aware of the context in which you're communicating and be I don't know if sympathetic is the right word, but just be aware that the people involved in the communication, specifically the computer mediated communication, are in all different places than what your perspective is. So we'll move on to chapter 9.